welcome you all to the session. In the last session that we have discussed about the operative function training, in which we have discussed about the meaning and definition of performance appraisal. Followed with this that we have discussed about the types of and principles of training. In this session, we are going to discuss about the next operative function, performance appraisal, in which we are going to discuss about the meaning and definition of performance appraisal. Followed with this, have planned to discuss about the objectives of performance appraisal, purpose of performance appraisal. Along with that we are going to discuss about the principles of performance appraisal, and I am also going to brief about the various methods of performance appraisal, and finally in this session have planned to discuss about the limitations of performance appraisal. Let us move on to see the meaning of performance appraisal. Performance appraisal is a process whereas employee's performance, contribution and skill are evaluated against his or her job requirement. It helps the employees to compare and to enhance their skill if needed. Usually this kind of performance appraisal held in most of the companies annually. Now with this, let us move on to see the definition of performance appraisal, which was derived by the author Edwin Flippo. Performance appraisal is a systematic, periodic and so far as humanly possible an imparting rating of employees' excellence, matters pertaining the present job and to his potentiality for the better job. With this clear definition towards the author, now let us move on to see the objectives of performance appraisal. Here I have given three objectives. The first objective is to determine the employee's excellence in the job so that they can determine the benefits for the employees. The second objective is to identify the shortcomings of the employees so that they can guide, they can direct and they can provide the required training for the employees. The third objective is to determine the potentiality of the employees so that they can determine the promotion and they also look after for the career advancement of the employees. That we have seen the three objectives of performance appraisal. Now it's time to see the purpose of performance appraisal. The purpose of conducting this performance appraisal helps various stakeholders, employer, employee and management. For the management people, that helps them to take decision regarding employees' salary increment. The second, it helps the employees to look after for the skill and to bring them as a qualified employees. Whereas again for the management, it helps the management to take decision regarding the benefits of the employees. There is always a gap between employer and employee. This kind of performance appraisal bridges the gap between employers and employees. Whereas the training's importance will be known towards this performance appraisal. Principles of performance appraisal. There is certain principle which has to be followed by the assessor while assessing the performance of the employees. Here I have given 8 principles which has to be followed by the assessor while assessing the employee's performance. The first principle is rating, where a single employee has to be rated by 2 raters. The second principle is continuous and personal observation is very essential for effective assessment of performance appraisals. The third important principle is the immediate superior has to assess his subordinate. The fourth principle is a separate department has to be maintained to assess the performance of the employees. The fifth principle is rating, whereas the employee's rating has to be conveyed to the employees. The sixth principle is the positive aspect has to be highlighted more towards the employees beyond the negatives. The seventh principle is standard, whereas employee has to be known the standard of performance according to the job. The eighth principle is printed form. A separate printed form has to be maintained for the employees according to the job and nature of the job. I have explained 8 principles which is very essential and which has to be followed by the assessor while assessing the employee's performance. Now let us move on to see the methods of performance appraisal. There are various methods are there which we can classify into 2 ways, traditional method and modern method. Traditional methods is also used by more number of entrepreneurs, but modern methods attracts more number of new entrepreneurs. Now let us move on to see the traditional methods first. In traditional method, the first one is ranking method. In ranking method, the employee is compared against other employees in the work group. Here the ranking starts from 1 and it ends with the last employee of the concern. So this kind of method useful for the small scale industries, whereas it will not support for the large scale industries. The second method is paired comparison method. In this method too, an employee is compared with an other employee, but only once at a time. So this kind of method will helpful for the large scale industries too. Now the third method, forced distribution method. In this method, the assessee is forced to assess the overall performance of the employees. So group-wise classification and assessment is possible over there in this method. The fourth method is a grading method. The assessee will earlier came to know about the ability, skill and job profile. Then they will assess the employees. They comes under which category. They will have the category like very good, good, very poor and poor. Now let us see the fifth method in traditional method, that is checklist method. In this, n number of questions arise among the employees. Based on the answers of the employees, they will assess the employee's performance. The next method is forced choice method. In this method, the assessee will prepare the statement positively and negatively. Based on the answers of the employee, they will assess the employee's positive aspect. Now let us see the seventh method in traditional method. It is critical incident method. The employee is assessed and how well the employee is behaving in certain situation. That we can take the COVID-19 as an example. How well the employees are cooperated to the management to manage this pandemic situation. Now let us see the eighth method in traditional method. It is graphical rating scale. It is also known as linear scaling method. In this kind of method, various traits are listed over there in a printed form and the employee is assessed based on the triads. Now let us see the modern methods of performance appraisal which attracts more number of employers. The methods are management by objective, 360-degree feedback method, assessment center, psychological testing, and the last one is human resource accounting method. The first one, management by objective, in which the employer will put effort to attain the objective which was determined by the management. The employee is assessed based on attaining the objective. The second one is 360-degree feedback method, in which various levels of group of people provide their valuable feedback towards the employees, from which the employee's performance is assessed. The third method is personality testing method. In this method, the employee's past is not referred, whereas they look after for the future aspect of the employees. The in-depth interview and personality test has been conducted to assess the employee's performance. The next important method is assessment center method. In this method, the employee's social and informal activities has been assessed by the assessor. Based on that, the employee's performance has been assessed. The next method is human resource accounting method. In this method, the employee's cost and contribution has been assessed. What is the cost spended for an employee and what is the contribution that the employee has been done for the management has been assessed. Now it's time to see the limitations of performance appraisal. Choosing an appropriate method for appraisal is very essential. Choosing an unreliable method will become a major problem for the appraisals. If an employer is well known to an employee, then we can't expect for the effective performance appraisal. As like that, if a supervisor or superior is not qualified or unable to assess the employees, then it becomes a major limitations for appraisals. As like that, we can say that clear defined objective and clear standard methods has to be defined. If it not, then it becomes a problem for the performance appraisal. That we came to the end of the session. In this session that we have seen about the operative function performance appraisal. We have seen the meaning, definition, objective, purposes, principles of performance appraisal, and we have discussed briefly about the methods of performance appraisal. Finally, in that session that we have seen about the limitations of performance appraisal. In the forthcoming session that we are going to discuss about the industrial relation. Thank you.